to the Father, we've made it this far. Thanks to the Father, we know who we are.
Much fun fellowshipping. I decided there was a time to put an end to that and get serious. So, not too serious, but a little bit. We're so glad to have you here this morning. Thanks so much for coming out. It's not, some of you came at 6:30. Even you who came at 7, that's still early, so we appreciate it. We appreciate your support of TBC. Before I talk about TBC, I want to express my deepest thanks to all of you for your prayers and your many expressions of love and concern for my son Travis, who suffered a stroke on April 1st, and my wife Joanna, whose kidney disease has grown worse in the last few months. As healing has taken place and Travis has grown stronger, I've told him how grateful I am to have a wide network of friends who I know I can count on. When they say, "I'll pray for you," they mean it. They mean it. And you have prayed. And many have asked about them the past couple of days, so I'll just give a real quick update. Travis has a long road ahead of him, but he's been out of the hospital for almost a month now, which is just remarkable considering what happened with him. He goes 5 days a week for 6 hours of very intense rehab at an excellent facility that specializes in brain injuries. He's staying positive and is determined to do whatever it takes to regain all of his motor skills and all of his cognitive abilities. Joanna recently started a steroid regimen that her doctor believes will fight her disease. She's struggling with some of the side effects of that right now, and I appreciate your continued prayers for her. Sleep is not easy these days. She doesn't get a lot of sleep with that medicine, but she goes back to see the doctor next month, and we'll learn then just what progress we're making in fighting her disease. She's also on we've sent in an application for a kidney transplant, and we'll soon start the process for that. I want you to know I can't say enough good things about our Texas Baptist Committed Board. If you're a member of our board, please stand. There are a few of you here today. For the first month of Travis's illness, and maybe a little bit more, I was spending 14, 15-hour days at the hospital every single day. This board was entirely supportive and understanding. When I thanked them at a conference call in May, their response was, "We're privileged to walk this road with you." I could not work for and with a finer group of people, so I want to say thank you to them. Now I also want to take a moment to express my appreciation for our BGCT leadership team, David Hardage and Steve Vernon. Steve is here. David will speak in a few moments, who provide day-to-day leadership from the Baptist building, and Jeff Johnson, Byron Stevenson, and Kathy Hillman, who have served Texas Baptist with grace and distinction since their election last October. Jeff and Kathy now have the opportunity to continue that work, joined by Renee Maciel. Jeff and Kathy are with us this morning. Renee had a breakfast at BUA and so was unable to join us. Let's congratulate Texas Baptist newly elected leaders. Last October in Corpus Christi, I gave a brief recounting of the renewal process that TBC had gone through since the retirement of David Curry in the fall of 2009. It began as a story of reassessment and revisioning, a period during which we were relatively quiet publicly. This was followed by efforts to reconnect with our supporters and undertake new initiatives, reflecting the vision that our board had arrived at to meet the needs and challenges of today's Baptist environment. I reported then that our number of donors had more than doubled in 2012 over 2011, and that the dollar amount of 2012 donations had shown an increase of almost 70% over 2011. Today I can report that as of June 30th this year, the number of donors and the amount of donor gifts are both approaching the totals from 2012 already, meaning that you are responding to what we're doing and want to be a part of it. Initiatives begun the past 2 years are bearing fruit in 2013. Each week, we still have numerous people viewing our Baptist Priest videos on our website, which were produced 2.5 years ago. The number of people opening our TBC Weekly Baptist Roundup e-news continues to increase. Only last October in Corpus Christi, I reported to you that over 500 people were opening the Roundup each week and clicking its links. 500. Well, that number has been over 700 now for several months. So people are continuing to connect with the Roundup, and I expect that number to continue to grow as people discover a central hub from which they can find Baptist news, opinion, and analysis from a wide variety of sources. Last year, we established the TBC Advisory Network, consisting of clergy and laity across Texas, who can make TBC more effective in helping churches by letting us know about churches that are without a pastor, recommending solid pastoral candidates, and providing us with names and resumes that we can pass along to pastorless churches, and providing us with information requested by search committees concerning specific pastoral candidates. I've begun to tap into this network in response to recent requests from search committees, and have received several responses that I've then been able to share with those committees. We plan to gather this network together each year at the annual meeting so that we can put faces with names and give them a chance to truly network with each other face to face. That first gathering will take place immediately after this breakfast. So you're all welcome to stay, even if you just want to find out a little bit more about the advisory network. Your presence here today says you care about the mission of TBC. That's really the only qualification you need to be a part of the TBC Advisory Network. I still read occasional op-ed pieces longing for peace among Baptists. Why can't we all get along, they ask. Well, that sounds great. I wish we could. But get along at what price? Those who say both sides are at fault are either ignoring or denying the history of the past 30 plus years. One side wanted to get along. One side said, we can disagree, but still cooperate. The other side said, if you don't use our language about God and the Bible, we don't want you with us. It was not our choice to leave them. We were told to leave. We were told we weren't welcome. Those who say fine, but that's ancient history, are either ignoring or denying reality. The reality that one Baptist convention in Texas was formed solely because they couldn't work with the rest of us. We in the BGCT didn't ask or tell them to leave. We said, again, we can disagree with you, but still cooperate in spreading the good news of Jesus Christ. My word. We in this room don't all agree with each other on everything. But we still work together and we still cooperate. We still have a common cause. But they said, if you don't use our language about God and the Bible, we don't want to be a part of you. It was their choice to leave us in Texas. Last year, TBC published a brochure that lists and explains critical differences between the BGCT and the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention. Since then, I've had quite a few requests from TBC supporters for 10, 25, even 50 copies to share with members of their church. Why? Because they don't want their church to fall prey to the destruction brought by the SBTC to churches across Texas. Whereas the BGCT starts churches, the SBTC steals them. Churches with a long history of BGCT affiliation. But they are effective only when a church's people are uninformed. The greatest threat to the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention is an informed congregation that knows when it is being fed lies and misinformation. I continue to receive calls from members of pastor search committees around the state asking for TBC's help, requesting information on pastoral candidates they're considering, even requesting resumes of pastoral candidates in whom we have confidence. These calls are my top priority. When I get a call like that, I immediately start working phone and email to get the information they need. The TBC Advisory Network provides us with a new critical resource for responding to these requests for information. Again, I hope you'll consider getting involved as a member of the Advisory Network. So this is our commitment at TBC, to help keep Texas Baptist churches as places where people are free to serve out their call as they are led by God. We do not insert ourselves into local church situations because we respect the autonomy of the local church, but we want to respond to the concerns of members of those churches as they work to keep their churches free from the control of the Southern Baptists of Texas. We're here to help Texas Baptists in their churches, and we're privileged to partner with the Baptist General Convention of Texas in that work. We work closely with the BGCT's Pastor Church Connection Office and BGCT Church Strategists to help these churches. Along with all of this, we continue to do what TBC has always done, encourage strong, positive leadership for the Baptist General Convention of Texas, keep Texas Baptists informed, and encourage attendance and informed votes at the annual meeting. Speaking of which, as I listened to the speakers on Sunday evening, wasn't that a wonderful worship service? And saw the diverse group of people on stage who proclaimed, "I am a Texas Baptist." And looked around and saw that same diversity reflected across the room. I couldn't help but think of TBC's role through the years in encouraging diversity among our leadership. Texas Baptist Committed played a critical role in encouraging, supporting, and endorsing the first Hispanic BGCT President, Albert Reyes, the first African American BGCT President, Michael Bell, and the first woman BGCT President, Joy Fenner. All three of whom were members of the TBC Board when they were elected to the BGCT presidency. We are committed to diversity on our board. Not diversity simply for the sake of diversity, but diversity because it makes us stronger, it makes us better, it makes us more Christ-like. We can better meet a diversity of needs, and that, after all, is the example of Christ, when we can draw from a diversity of input, cultural experiences, life outlook. No matter how well-intentioned we are, we will fail miserably to understand the needs of communities that are different than ours unless we have members of those communities, whether ethnic, gender, cultural, age, racial, socioeconomic, sitting at the table with us, offering their perspectives and input. I'm proud of Texas Baptist Committed's role in encouraging and promoting diversity, and our board and I are determined to continue that legacy. Along that same interest of listening to different voices and perspectives, it's important to remember that while we work closely with the BGCT and support the BGCT, we're not an agency or even an auxiliary of the BGCT. Texas Baptist Committed is an independent organization. One of our roles is still to be a watchdog. Our priority is to preserve our Baptist heritage and see to it that Baptists stay true to that heritage. So one of our roles is to hold Baptists, even our friends at the BGCT, accountable to that Baptist heritage, and we take that role very seriously. The threats faced by Texas Baptists may change in form and venue, but they will always be there because there will always be those who want to dictate rather than cooperate. Dictate rather than empower, control. In looking to the future, we need to show college and seminary students of today why they should be a part of Texas Baptist Committed. I know we have a few students with us today. If you're a college or seminary student, would you please stand? And we had some others sign. Yeah, let's please. Young people, these are Texas Baptists, and we want you to be a part of this. And we want you to be a part of Texas Baptist Committed. We need you. If these faces that you just saw are the face of the future of Texas Baptist Committed, then we'll be in good shape. We need more of you. We need more of you. This morning, I want to officially announce another way in which Texas Baptist Committed is looking to the future. In January, at my recommendation, our board voted unanimously to establish the Texas Baptist Committed Endowment Fund. Our good friend and board member, Bob Stevenson, has generously made the first donation of $10,000 to this fund. Bob has gotten us started. It's up to the rest of us to build on the cornerstone that Bob Stevenson has laid for us. In front of you, you'll find a packet that contains a brochure that tells you the many creative ways in which you can contribute to the Texas Baptist Committed Endowment Fund and the tax benefits and so forth that go along with those. These are, of course, in addition to simple one-time cash gifts or monthly or annual pledges. You can give that way to the endowment fund as well. Many of you are already contributing financially to what TBC is doing today. I hope you'll consider contributing to what TBC will be doing 5, 10, 20, or even 50 years from now. Those who refused to work with us 20 and 30 years ago have trained up new generations who are using the same tactics to undermine the BGCT today. That's a pretty good indication that they're still going to be hard at work 30 years from today. And the work of Texas Baptist Committed will still be critical to keeping Texas Baptists informed and free. Please help us to make sure TBC will be around to do that work. If TBC doesn't do it, who will? Dr. Hardage's talk this morning is entitled Going Forward, and that could well be our theme at TBC, because we're looking forward to meeting the challenges of the coming years with your active involvement. TBC is at work, and we invite you to be an active part of that work. And Wesley's going to come now, and after Wesley, I've asked Jeff Johnson to say a few words. I so appreciate what Jeff has done during the past year. Jeff has also been a good friend. I can't tell you how many text messages I've received in the past few months from Jeff saying, how's Travis doing today, how's Joanna? And that has meant a lot to me. So I have a deep appreciation for him. I've asked Jeff to come after Wesley. So, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, I do seem to be the pinch hitter for everybody who can't be here, but thank you so much for being here. You know why I'm up here, because it says so in the bulletin, even though I'm not Clyde Glazner, who does a much better job at this kind of thing than I do. I am here to ask for donations. I got it out there right at the beginning. I debated on how I should approach this, whether I should be very direct or whether I should slip up on you a little bit, but I decided if I slipped up, you wouldn't be surprised anyway. You knew why I was here. We went away for a while back, and many people around Texas thought that we were gone forever. Wondered why we still needed Texas Baptist Committed. Well, we are still needed because our mission has not changed since the very beginning. We're here to promote and educate those around Texas about historic Baptist life, about who historic Baptists are and the message that we have. And we are all very much aware that there are those who were once among us who have promoted and educated others in a message that, well, as Paul would say, it is no gospel at all. And so we have come together today as Texas Baptist Committed to remind ourselves of the important task that we continue to hold to promote historic Baptist life and to educate people on the important things of the gospel. Our mission has not changed, but our strategy has changed. No longer, as you know, are we worried about political shenanigans here in the BGCT, but the strategy of those who would be against us has changed as well. The battlefront is no longer at the convention. The battlefront is in your church, in your deacons meetings, in your pulpit committee meetings, in your association. And we at Texas Baptist Committed know that unless we can work in microcosm instead of macrocosm, that we are going to lose. Every time a church goes pastorless, the SBTC has someone on their front door offering interim pastors, offering support, offering help. It's a guerrilla warfare. And it's very difficult to know how to deal with that. And so at Texas Baptist Committed, we are trying to work with churches and associations That does not come free. It's not real expensive, but it is not free. We need to pay bill. We need to do some mail outs. We need to do things, travel around and do those things which help us to educate. And so, when I got to my table, I saw my annual renewal, and I was thinking to myself, you know, I don't think I have renewed this year. So I filled my card out. You can too. It's right there where you're sitting. Fill your card out, put some money in it, or a check in it. Put a check with zeros in it. Lots of zeros. On the left side of the dot instead of the right side of the dot. If you will do that, you will be helping us at Texas Baptist Committed to help your church and help the churches of your neighbors to remain strong and true to who Texas Baptist ought to be. May God bless you and bless you as you give.
There's another person I'd like to recognize that you guys may not know, but Dr. Ron Lyles, who is talking to Steve Vernon over there. Ron, would you stand up, please? He is the new chairman of our Texas Baptist Executive Board. And so y'all give Ron a hand. I'm excited about that. That kind of slipped under the radar this week as Van went off the stage. But Ron, I'm excited about what you bring to the table and what God's going to do with that. I'm excited about that. A couple of things, and then I'm turning it over, I suppose, to introduce Dr. Hardage going forward, right, David? Huh? Right. Last year, I stood up here and I talked to you a little bit about who I am and where we're going. And one of the issues that I put on the table, and I know Steve Vernon was there that day, I said we need to make sure that we meet together as affinity groups. And those affinity groups aren't just a meeting, but we actually have an ability to represent and have a voice at the executive board and so on and so forth. I am here to tell you that the BGCT, we've worked together, and now we have, not only do our affinity groups meet together at the executive board, but they actually report at the executive board and have initiatives for Texas Baptist on the executive board. That's a milestone for us, and I have, is Gus Reyes in here today? Dr. Gus Reyes is very, very key in helping us get that accomplished as well. And so that was an initiative we talked about last year. So I'm here today to tell you that we accomplished something. Okay, so you set your goal at doing something, and there are different goals and dreams. Dreams are things it's going to take somebody else to do it, and goals are things you can accomplish yourself. And so we accomplished some goals and dreams. The second thing that I'd like to talk about is, I guess people have asked me, well, what are we going to do this next year? I know this past year we really focused on this meeting heavily, and we worked together very, very diligently. We didn't get everything accomplished that we wanted to in this gathering. We really wanted to be even more diverse, but maybe that's for the next gathering we have, okay? But one of the things that I want to do for next year, and Dr. Hardage, I'm going to throw this out at you, okay, is I think there's an untapped resource among Texas Baptists that we have that we need to tap into. And those are people who are former officers of the Baptist General Convention of Texas. If you've been an officer of the BGCT, president, vice president, or first vice president, or second vice president, would you please stand? Give them a hand. Okay. This is what I think. I think somehow, some way, David, and maybe I can help with this initiative, that by this time next year, we can pull together that network of people. And we can begin to allow David to have a sounding board of people, and we can have a network of people and pray for one another, just like with Clyde Glazer. You know, it would be really neat. Milton Cunningham. You know, there are lots of things that go on that we need to know about each other, and I know there, as a leader now, and after next year being a former Texas Baptist officer, I think that there are people we know, things that we know. I look over at Dr. Reyes, and gosh, a mentor, worked with him there at BUA, wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him and the wisdom that he has and the depth of knowledge he has cross-culturally and things like that. Those are things that I think together, with a synergy, we could pull together. And you know, David, I think you guys we could work together at least on an annual basis, to where maybe we could meet together for a breakfast or a brunch or something, and just listen to one another, talk with one another, and communicate with one another. And I think that would be a healthy thing. I look forward to serving you as an officer this next year. You know, I'm an Aggie, and I'm not sure about Waco. Kathy keeps telling me, there we go. She keeps telling me it's going to be okay. And so she has invited me to come tour the campus. Never been there except for a football game. Not really, I'm teasing. but at any rate, I've only been to Truett Seminary one time, and that's when I went for a conference one time when David invited me when he was there. And so I've got to get to know more about Waco, right? But we'll try to accomplish that this next year. So when I get here next year, we meet in Waco, maybe I can tell you I've done that. God bless y'all. It's an honor to serve.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, David, we made it 9 months later.
I'm not up there yet.
I went up after the service Sunday night. I went looking for him, and I said, he said, I'm feeling good so far. I said, good, I hope it stays that way. We did, David has accepted our invitation twice to speak to our breakfast, and so we're so honored and pleased that you're here with us this morning. On January 12th of last year, the Baptist General Convention of Texas Executive Board elected David Hardage to serve as the convention's executive director. At the time, Dr. Hardage was serving as Director of Development for George W. Truett Theological Seminary and interim pastor at First Baptist Church, Waxahachie. He previously has served as Executive Director of the Waco Regional Baptist Association. He has pastored First Baptist Church of Sulphur Springs, First Baptist Church of Holiday, and First Baptist Church of Blum, all in Texas, as well as First Baptist Church of Weatherford, Oklahoma. He's also served as interim pastor at churches including Columbus Avenue Baptist Church in Waco, First Baptist Church in Huntsville, and First Baptist Church in Bryan. In addition, Dr. Hardage has served as chairman of the BGCT State Missions Commission, chairman of the BGCT Missions Funding Committee, and a trustee at East Texas Baptist University, as well as Latham Springs Camp and Retreat Center. Dr. Hardage earned his bachelor's degree from Baylor University, Master of Divinity from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, didn't hear any amens on that, and a doctorate from Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Kansas City, Missouri. Dr. Hardage is married to Kathleen, a retired school teacher. They have 2 children, John, an attorney in Dallas, married to Melissa, and Rebecca, a marketing manager in Austin. Again, David, we're pleased to have you with us today. Come speak to us.
Well, I am honored to be here, and I'm glad I'm able to be here, so thank you for that. I hope that doesn't fall off. Anyway, thank you, Bill, for the invitation again. And like I told you yesterday, since I started this work for Texas Baptist, I really had been sick one day in 18 months, and that was last year. But Wesley, thank you for stepping in and doing such a wonderful job. And I know to pinch hit like that on a last minute notice is challenging, but you did it, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm thankful to be here today. And thankful for Bill for the invitation. Bill comes by the office about once a quarter, and we just sit down and visit and go over things, and appreciate his willingness to do that, and he knows that he always has an open door there for in my office to come by and visit, or with Steve Vernon as well. So Bill, please continue to come by and visit, and we will look forward to those times in the future. And it's just good to be here with so many people I know and friends, my former colleagues here at Truett Seminary, and just cherish them and that institution so very much. And so thank you all for being here. Right, so close. I don't know how much they had to pay for that table, Bill, but I'm very impressed. I do want to talk just a little bit about some of our work going forward. So this is about an update on some things happening in Texas Baptist life, as much as anything else. But you all know that any one of you can call, email, write, come by anytime. Always happy to talk with you and visit with you, and hope you'll do that. So the door's open, and please come by. Now, as far as our work going forward, I think I'll start with a little bit about what has already been said here regarding from Wesley and from Bill in terms of the local church issue and Texas Baptist. I had thought for some time, long before I ever came into this position, that we, BGCT, were not being nearly aggressive enough when it comes to the whole process of pastor search. And so last August we started what we call in our building and you've heard it here today, the Church Connection team. And the idea behind all of that is fairly simple. Using the connections we have through our congregational strategists around the state, and there are 9 of those, and using the connections we have already from our church starters around the state, and there are 9 of those, plus others in the building. The general principle is when a church has a pastor that leaves, we want to be on the doorstep, and we want to be there to help them in that process of pulpit supply. You know, that very first Sunday, they're not too worried about who will be the next pastor. A lot of them are worried about who will preach next Sunday. So we want to be there with pulpit supplies. And then right there, able to provide quality candidates to serve as interims or intentional interims, depending which process a church may choose. And then we do want to be right there providing quality Texas Baptist candidates for pastor. Dr. Joe Laughlin was enlisted to head up that whole work for us, and he now leads that. In the exhibit hall, you can go meet him and meet the others now serving there. Carl Fickling serves in that team. Lorenzo Pena serves on that team as he works with the associations around Texas. And we're making a couple of more changes in that probably in the coming days and weeks, adding some additional support to that. And I say all that to tell you, it is our intention as Texas Baptists to be aggressive when it comes to that. Again, we will not insert ourselves into that process, but we will be aggressively available to help churches. And that's where your network, we will count as valued friends and partners in that whole process. So I just want you to know about that and bring you up to speed on that just a little bit. Let me talk just a couple of moments here about the Christian Life Commission and where we are in that regard. And I really can't talk about the Christian Life Commission without saying a couple of words of commendation, first to Farrell Foster, who is here. Farrell, would you stand, please? Farrell has stepped in as the interim director of the CLC and has served Texas Baptist remarkably well. And I say that in private, and I have no hesitation saying that in public. So Farrell, thank you very much. We could not have done what we've done as Texas Baptist this whole past legislative session and special session were it not for Stephen Reeves. Stephen, would you stand up, please? Stephen Reeves is the Director of Public Policy and just a valued part of Texas Baptist life. And I don't say that lightly, I say that deeply. Thank you both. Our search for the next director just kind of been on a holding pattern until a couple of things happened. One, we were able to get past this legislative session. In order to do all that, because of Susie's departure, and she set all of this in place with Farrell and Stephen, we really had to, and in some ways overextended ourselves financially a little bit to enlist some additional, and I know I'm not supposed to use the word lobbyist, so to speak, but to enlist some additional lobbyists to walk through some and walk with us and carry some issues for us. And so Stephen was right there. Farrell made weekly trips to Austin, but along with these new partners to kind of walk through all of that with us through the legislative session. And so financially, we were just in a position where we had to get all of that done. And then this particular meeting required a lot of our time, and as wonderful as this is to have a meeting like this in a place like this, it is financially a stretch for Texas Baptist. We've been able to make it all happen, and I'm pleased about that, but we needed to get past this convention as well. But that process of searching for that next director will get underway very soon, and I hope by January the 1st, when we have our new budget things ready to go and we're in place there, that we'll be doing all of that with the new director of Christian Life Commission, and along the way, we'll reposition that person in our executive leadership and be excited about the way all that's going to unfold. But I wanted you to just have a little update on all of that and be aware of all that, and to invite you, not that you need an invitation, certainly, some of you certainly haven't needed an invitation, to provide insight and direction and candidates for that, but please, you're invited to do that, and we hope that you will. The CLC is a significant part of Texas Baptist life and always will be, and going forward, that is not and will not change for us. And probably the role of the CLC in the future may even be enhanced some, just because of the way Texas is changing. And it's hard to keep up with the rapid rate of change in Texas. I know that I keep pointing Stephen Farrell out, but the three of us happened to be at a meeting last night. It's the African American Fellowship dinner, but they had a professor from the University of Louisville who is a futurist come and talk about the way our lives are changing, and it was extraordinary to start with, but almost overwhelming. And so the way life is changing and the way Texas is changing, the CLC will be a significant part of our future. And so I wanted you to know that. I also wanted to bring you up to date just a little bit on this whole issue with the Baptist building. So let me make sure you know, we didn't put the Baptist building on the market, although some have suggested that we do that. And that's the honest truth. I've had a number of people, long before I even was in this position, talk about that issue. And but we were approached about the possibility of Baylor University, on behalf of the Baylor University School of Nursing, with the support of the Baylor Hospital System, about buying our Baptist building, you know where it sits, you all know, have been there, for a new nursing school. Now, let me talk about that whole scenario just a little bit. When I first got the phone call about that and said, would you be willing to sell the Baptist building? Well, it's not my decision to start with, but my response was, well, our Baptist building is not for sale, but it could be purchased. And so we just kind of started with that. But then we've learned other things. One of the things we've learned is that, and part of it has to do with the merger of the Baylor Health System and Scott and White, but the Baylor Hospital System, and I don't want to speak for Joel Allison, but I will say they do have big plans for the future, and I'll just leave it at that. They have big plans for the future. The other part about that is the changing and ever-changing moving target world of healthcare. And one of the things that has already been fairly clearly identified in that whole healthcare world is that going forward, there is going to be a significant need for nursing care, maybe even a higher level of skilled nursing care. And I'm not in that healthcare business, or I hardly speak that language. But that means that our Texas Baptist nursing schools, I'm all for them. They need to produce more nurses who have a Christian calling about them. And the Baylor School of Nursing is part of that whole issue. Right now they have about 30,000 square feet. Our building has about 100,000 square feet. The dormitory that is connected to the nursing school now has been condemned. And so there are issues down there that they deal with. And so that was the motivating factors behind all of that. And so I'm just kind of putting it all out there for you. So they called and asked if we'd be open to that possibility. We come and we talked about that to our executive board, and I think the general consensus was, actually it's the unanimous consensus of the executive board was, let's be open and to see if this is something that God would have for us. And if so, then we'll think creatively about the future and what that might hold for Texas Baptist. What that is going to be in the future, I don't know. My anticipation would be that if we were to sell that building, and that's still a long way from happening, if it were to happen, I think the chances of us all being together as a Baptist building staff in one place are less likely. I would imagine just something, maybe just as an idea that's been floated out there, that you perhaps could, and we'd pray about and discuss the idea of maybe 3 or 4 locations, maybe along the I-35 corridor, where Texas is growing so rapidly and so quickly, including maybe some kind of decent presence here in San Antonio. If you look at just the demographics of our state, just if you drew a line across the middle of Texas, other than the Metroplex, most of our growth is south. And so all that to say, we'll be thinking about and praying about and trying to do the right thing in regards to all of that. Your insight there, your wisdom in that regard would be helpful, and we'll just see what happens. That's where that is. But I don't have any secrets about it, so I just wanted to put it out there and let you know it's kind of where we are. It may be a window of opportunity to think out of the box about our life in different ways, and if so, then we'll do that. Texas is different. Texas Baptist life is different. It will be different 10 years now, much more so than it is even today. And so we'll try to be a group that responds to those changes. Let me say a word about our Texas Baptist Hunger Offering going forward. But I'll speak to the past just a little bit, but the recent past. I was attending my very first ever Baptist World Alliance meeting in Washington, D.C. this past, I don't know if it was late February or early March, and And who walks in the door but Farrell Foster? And so we're just kind of talking, and this whole hunger issue came up, and the hunger offering came up, and before we had finished talking, we decided that it might be great for Texas Baptist to set aside not only just those Sundays with the those months with the 5 Sundays in them for special hunger offerings, but what if we did something really strategic and focused on Mother's Day as an offering day that might inspire our Texas Baptist people to give extra to meet the needs of the hungry in our state and beyond. And then the idea was, well, we can do that in 2014, and Farrell and I just kind of talked about it and said, you know, do we always have to wait 12 months or 15 months to do something good? Do we always have to just sit back and plan something so far in advance? Why can't we just put it out there right now, and whatever we get will be a blessing to, you know, people are going to be hungry next year, sure, but they're hungry today. And so we just put it out there and did the best we could in just a couple of months' time to get the word out to as many Texas Baptists as possible that we're going to have a special Texas Baptist hunger offering on Mother's Day. And our people responded. Now the truth is, the disaster in West, the tornadoes in Cleburne and Granbury and more, all had Texas Baptist people taking up special offerings for those things, and as they should have. But even in the midst of all of that, our Texas Baptist churches on Mother's Day gave over $250,000 for a Texas Baptist hunger offering. Now our goal was $1 million. Next year our goal will be $1 million. The year after that the goal will be $1 million. And I'm fairly hopeful one of these days we're going to be able to stand before Texas Baptist and say, on Mother's Day, Texas Baptist gave over $1 million to the Texas Baptist Hunger Offering. And I hope you will go back and be an advocate for that in your church. We have a great ministry going there, and I'll be going to the luncheon today in that regard. But I wanted you to know kind of how that happened, and going forward, that'll be an emphasis for us. And I think it's something Texas Baptists can get their arms and minds around. And hopefully their pocketbooks. 2 other quick things. A change was made in the whole Elder Statesman Award. You all, as Texas Baptist Committee people, knew and have been involved in the Elder Statesman Award for all these years. But we got word this past January that the Elder Statesman Award was going away. That the group that had been leading that was the award that was given to a Texas Baptist leader who had made a positive impact in Texas Baptist education for years. But that was just not, they were not going to be able to sustain giving that award in the future. And so in conversations that I had with Bill Arnold back here and Dr. Alan Lefevre, we think, just don't let that award go away. We still need to recognize Texas Baptists who made a significant impact in our work. And so we just reestablished something, and we've called it the Texas Baptist Legacy Award. And this past January at the Independence Church, we kept a lot of the things the same. We'll still be at the Independence Church, that oldest Baptist church in continual existence in Texas. It'll still be there the first Sunday of every June. And Bob Feather from Dallas and Wilma Reed from Cleburne were our first recipients. We changed some things up. We don't just recognize one person now. It'll probably be 2, maybe 3, sometimes perhaps 4 in the future, but at least 2 people every year. I know you pastors only have a few Sundays a year that you can be away, but I also know as a pastor, lay people, you don't seem to be held by those same standards. The freedom you exercise in being gone on a Sunday is, I have a greater appreciation for that now. Nonetheless, we would love to have you come to Independence and the old church for the Texas Baptist Legacy Award. It is about remembering who we were. It is about acknowledging who we are, And it is about laying a groundwork for what we're going to be in the future. And Texas Baptist Committed, there's not a group in our state who kind of falls in the pattern of that, of who we were and who we are and what we're going to be than this group. And so I wanted, Bill, to invite you all to come and be a part of that Texas Baptist Legacy Award. And so please do that. Now, if any of you have heard me speak in the last 17 and a half months, you know I always end on this. It's generosity. Texas Baptist, it is absolutely essential. I don't think it's optional, frankly. It's essential that we raise up a fresh spirit of generosity among our people. And when we speak of generosity, just like I said yesterday, we do talk about it in terms of a lifestyle. And I mentioned yesterday the way Texas Baptist responded to West with their time and with their talent. It was extraordinary. Over 650 Texas Baptists in the city of West over the course of 5 days. The same thing is happening here soon in our Loving Oklahoma Week. And you know what? Texas Baptists are going to respond to that, even in Oklahoma. We will do that. Let me say to you, generosity of time and talent and treasure, we must secure our financial future. As Texas Baptist Committed. Now, Bill and I talked about that endowment award in my office a while back, and that the endowment that you are establishing. And he didn't ask me to do this, but I will reinforce the need for you to be prayerfully considering supporting that endowment for Texas Baptist Committed. But we have other people here from Texas Baptist Life as well, our institutions, Truett, DBU, and others I see, Hardin Simmons, and I don't want to leave anybody out. I know Howard Payne's here and some others, but all of you, our institutions need you to be generous. Now, my personal testimony is, I believe that, and Kathleen and I believe that it is our responsibility to be tithers. I was raised that way, but we believe that. But I'll tell you what we also believe. We believe that it's our responsibility to be stewards of what God has blessed us with, not only in life, but at death. And so, just in our modest means that we have, we've already established an endowment fund to a Baptist cause we believe in, so that our life and our legacy and our ministry will go on. And I'm asking every one of you to do the same thing. It'll be different for all of us. But whatever God puts in your heart, whatever you're passionate about, for some of you, that's going to be Texas Baptist Committed. But you can do that. I see Albert over here. We could establish the Texas Baptist. We have the resources right now to financially secure the future of Buckner. If you look 2.2 million Texas Baptists and the resources that are out there and the resources that are becoming available even today in Texas because of the tremendous things happening in oil and gas, it's extraordinary. But would you prayerfully consider a cause you believe in Texas Baptist life? Now, Bill Arnold is here from our Texas Baptist Missions Foundation. They're set up to talk with you about gifts. That's what they do. All you have to do is contact them. And they'll talk with you about your gifts at Texas Baptist Committed. That's no problem. This is a family affair. They're happy to do all of that. But I'm just encouraging you to give generously in life and at death. All of us can do something. Kathleen and I, we want to make sure our legacy goes on. our ministry continues. We want to touch more lives for Jesus after we've died than when we're alive. We think that's possible. All right, thank you for the time, Bill. And thank you that I've made it through this process here. I'm in one piece, and I'm happy to be a part of it. God bless you. Thank you so much.
David, thank you for your candor and for your vision and for your willingness and ability to share with us this year here at the Texas Baptist Committed Breakfast. Thank you. I want to thank you all for being here again. As Brother Teo Cisneros, a good friend from BUA, makes his way up here to close us in prayer, I did want to share with you again the invitation. Immediately after he prays, well, we'll give it about 3 or 4 minutes so we have a few little time to shift out. I know some of you need to make it to other meetings. We are going to talk about the advisory network of the Texas Baptist Committed, ways that you can help plug in and help the Texas Baptist Committed and help the Baptist General Convention of Texas to protect our churches that are under threat from the Southern Baptist of Texas. There are ways in terms of simply being aware, phone calls that can be made, emails that can be made, but simply making that network out there available for us to provide that service to our churches, to our own churches, as well as to the churches of our neighbors and our friends, so that the Baptist General Convention of Texas can remain strong. So in about 3 or 4 minutes after Brother Teo here leads us in our closing prayer, I'm going to have Brother Wesley, if you'll come up and kind of moderate that for us, our portion about that. So yeah, no, you're not filling in. You are doing it. So it's this is not a stand-in gig. So this is the real thing for Wesley. So you might want to stick around just to see how he does on that portion of things. So, but thank you again for being here this morning.
Come and lead us.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you in the precious, the sweet, the mighty, the powerful name of Jesus. And Father, as we have heard today, the many opportunities, but also challenges and sometimes uncertainty, it reminds us of you, that you are a God that always goes forward. You call Abram in the midst of uncertainty to leave his surroundings and move forward. You call Moses as he faced the Red Sea to move forward. And then you call Joshua to undertake the great task to arise and go. And then in the New Testament, you called us to go, to move forward. So as we face the opportunities and challenges and uncertainties as Texas Baptist, help us to also move forward and continue to proclaim the Texas Baptist life and principles, and move forward as Texas Baptist, as someone used to remind us, to make the main thing, and that is to proclaim the gospel of Jesus, that is still the answer to the cries, to the needs of humanity. And what a privilege we have to be your ambassadors. So continue to bless our gathering here, and thank you once again for bringing us together. This we pray.
Thanks to the Father,